They looked you in the eye, smiled, and stabbed you in the back. Not once, but repeatedly. You trusted them, and they turned your world upside down. It's time to confront the truth about betrayal. You gave everything, your time, your loyalty, your heart, and in return, they gave you lies, silence, or, worse, indifference. Betrayal doesn't always come with a loud crash. Sometimes it comes in the form of a soft smile and a slow, calculated withdrawal. You know what it feels like to walk into a room and suddenly feel smaller, not because you changed, but because someone you trusted shifted the ground beneath you. This isn't just about being hurt. This is about being broken by those you never imagined would cause you pain. And it's about what you do after the shattering. Today we don't sugarcoat. Today we confront. You're not alone in this. Many carry the weight of unspoken betrayal, but most never do what you're about to do. Face it, dissect it, and rise above. Betrayal isn't just an act. It's a revelation. It exposes the true nature of those around us and challenges our understanding of trust. In this video, we'll delve deep into the 3 most unforgivable betrayals in relationships, guided by the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Comment below. I choose truth over betrayal. Every man at some point has sat alone, staring into the past, wondering how the people he gave the most to were the first to leave, or, worse, the ones who twisted the knife. You've been loyal. You've shown up. You've sacrificed. And yet, the coldest wounds often come from the warmest hands. That pain you feel, it's not weakness. It's the shock of a man who expected honor and got games. Instead, Stoicism teaches us that peace isn't given, it's built. And today, brick by brick, you're going to rebuild your foundation stronger, sharper, unshakable. Because the world doesn't need more passive men. It needs men who see clearly, act decisively, and refuse to tolerate betrayal, no matter how beautifully it's disguised. If you've ever felt used, lied to, or emotionally drained, this video is your mirror and your roadmap. And by the end, you won't just understand betrayal, you'll know exactly how to rise above. Number 1. Disloyalty. There's a moment every man remembers. Not just a betrayal, but the split second when he saw someone he trusted choose themselves at his expense. And if you've lived long enough, you've felt that cold shift in the room, the silence that says more than words ever could. And in that moment, something inside you changes permanently, not in a loud or angry way, but like a quiet understanding that the version of you that believed in people without proof no longer exists. And if no one's told you yet, disloyalty isn't an accident. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a decision made with full awareness. And if you don't develop the discipline to see it for what it is, it will continue to sabotage your peace, your confidence, your masculinity, and your future. Because what most men never get taught is that loyalty from others only comes after you build unshakable loyalty to yourself. And if you're letting people stay in your life who switch sides when you're not winning, or who speak differently about you when you're not in the room, you're not just tolerating disrespect. You're telling your own soul it doesn't matter, and there's no coming back from that until you decide to raise your standard permanently, not as an act of revenge, not to prove a point, but because you finally realize the cost of letting unworthy people stay close is far greater than the cost of walking alone for a while. And if you're the type of man who thinks cutting people off is harsh, consider this. What's more brutal? Hurting someone's feelings or living a life where you constantly have to question if your circle is really for you. Because the truth is, if they loved you, you wouldn't have to wonder. And loyalty isn't just staying with someone. It's being for them in all conditions. Especially when they're not useful to you anymore. Especially when they've messed up. Especially when there's nothing to gain from sticking around. And if you're the only one being loyal in your relationships, that's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment, disguised as love. And no man can be fully present in his purpose while being surrounded by people who secretly resent him, compete with him, or only show up when they need something from him. So, you've got to check the energy when you share good news. If the people closest to you can't celebrate you, you've already outgrown them. And this isn't about becoming cold or paranoid. It's about becoming wise. And if you're not yet the kind of man who notices subtle cues, the way their voice changes when you succeed, the way they disappear when you struggle, the way they bring your name up only when you're not around, then start paying attention. Because the best way to protect yourself from betrayal is to observe before you attach. And the first time someone shows you they're not for you, you don't need a second chance to confirm it. And that doesn't mean you become rude or hostile. It means you adjust your access. Means you stop explaining your boundaries. It means you stop saving people who keep throwing themselves into the same fire, then blaming you for not pulling them out. And if that sounds cold to you, that's only because you've been trained to feel guilty for finally choosing yourself. But the truth is, loyalty without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's enslavement. And the moment you wake up to that, your entire life changes, because suddenly you stop needing validation. You stop begging to be understood. And you start attracting people who already get it, who don't need to be convinced of your worth, who don't need reminders to show up, who don't flinch when you're at your lowest. And if you're wondering where to begin, start with this. Take inventory. Look at your life like a business. Who's pouring into it? Who's withdrawing? Who's loyal to your face but not your absence? Who benefits from your wins but never supports the process? Who smiles at your strength but mocks your struggle? And once you've identified them, you don't need to make a scene. Just make a shift. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. Yes, it's going to feel lonely, but that loneliness is temporary. And the peace that follows is permanent. And if you want to become unshakable, you must train yourself to stop reacting to betrayal emotionally and start responding to it strategically. Because loyalty is tested most in silence. And if you want loyal people, be a loyal man first to your principles, to your time, to your standards, and most importantly to your inner peace. And if you've been betrayed before, remember this. It wasn't your fault for trusting, but it is your responsibility not to repeat the same mistake twice. And if you want to stay calm and controlled during the next confrontation, and there will be another, you need to stop expecting people to match your heart and start preparing for the day they won't. And the way you do that is simple but not easy. You stop reacting to words. You start watching behavior. You sit back and let people reveal themselves. You stay silent when disrespected and make moves instead. You look them in the eyes, not with hate, but with the calm confidence of a man who doesn't need closure because he already has clarity. And that clarity comes from a life of discipline, a life where your word means something, where your loyalty is earned, not given, where your circle is built, not inherited. And if you ever feel tempted to confront someone who betrayed you just to get your point across, ask yourself this: what do I gain by explaining myself to someone who already decided I wasn't worth loyalty? Because the truth is, explanation is for those who intend to stay. Clarity is for those who intend to go. And if someone's already shown you where they stand, believe them and keep it moving. Not because you're weak, but because you finally realized peace is louder than drama. And if you want that peace, you need to kill the part of you that keeps giving passes to people who wouldn't hesitate to leave you behind. And if you want to develop emotional strength, start by staying silent when provoked, by showing restraint when insulted, by making moves when doubted, and by keeping your power when they expect you to lose it. Because disloyal people don't just betray your trust, they feed off your reaction. And the most painful realization you'll ever have is that not everyone who hurt you regrets it. Are watching to see if you'll still come back, and you can't give them that satisfaction. Not if you want to build a life where your energy is sacred, where your focus is protected, and where your loyalty is reserved only for those who've proven they deserve it. And if you're asking where to start, start by writing down what loyalty means to you. Then live by it, and most importantly, require it in return. Number 2. Deception. There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't stab you in the back all at once, but cuts you slowly with a smile. It's not the blow that hits hardest. It's the one you didn't see coming, the one delivered while they looked you in the eyes. And deception is exactly that. Not a one-time lie, not just cheating or a broken promise, but a pattern of manipulation carefully wrapped in good intentions. And if you're a man who's ever been lied to by someone you trusted, be it a partner, a friend, a family member, the pain doesn't come from the lie itself, but from the realization that someone saw your trust as a tool, a weapon even to get what they wanted, and didn't think twice about using it against you. And it's the moment you realize she didn't just hide something from you. Studied your blind spots, used your love to shield her secrets, fed you half-truths and emotional detours to keep you distracted while she did the very thing you feared. Whether that was texting someone behind your back, telling others things about you she'd never say to your face, or building a secret world where you didn't exist. And while society might try to tell you to forgive, to move on, to understand her perspective, what they won't tell you is that deception rewires your entire sense of reality. And if you don't confront that damage and rebuild it deliberately, you'll start to question your own perception of truth. And that's how you lose yourself. When you start second-guessing what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, because someone was skilled enough to lie without flinching. And the biggest mistake a man makes after being deceived is assuming closure means getting the truth. But sometimes the truth is already in what you felt in your gut the first time, and you just needed the courage to listen to it. And the only way to break free from the psychological grip of a liar is to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt, once their actions have already proven the truth. Because the most dangerous liar isn't the one who tells big lies. It's the one who tells just enough truth to keep you confused, who gaslights your memory with phrases like "you're overreacting" or "I didn't mean it like that," who makes you feel guilty for even asking questions while hiding behind a mask of fake transparency. And the kind. The friend who laughs with you while planting seeds of doubt in others. The woman who smiles during dinner while texting someone else good night. The family member who hugs you in public but calls you a failure when you're not around and if you're not paying attention. These people can convince you that silence is peace and confusion is clarity. And that's where your power disappears, when you start doubting yourself because someone keeps moving the truth just out of reach. So if you want to escape the trap of deception, the first step is this: believe patterns, not words, because words are the easiest part of the lie. But patterns don't lie. And when someone shows you a habit of inconsistency, secrecy, or blurred stories, that's your signal. And no, you don't need to catch them red-handed or collect screenshots or interrogate their friends, because by the time you're doing all that, you've already lost your peace and given them too much power. And a man rooted in strength doesn't chase lies. He removes liars, not with aggression, but with indifference, not with confrontation, but with quiet clarity. And this doesn't mean you shut yourself off from everyone or become emotionally unavailable. It means you learn to guard your inner circle like it's your life, because it is. And if you've ever been in a relationship where the other person always had just enough explanation to stay out of guilt, but never enough honesty to build real trust, how soul-draining that becomes. And it's not just emotional damage. It's mental paralysis, because you spend hours replaying conversations, trying to piece together what was real and what was not. And this obsession with understanding a liar is what keeps you stuck, because the truth is, you'll never understand why someone lied to you unless you share their values. And if you're a man who values loyalty, consistency, and truth, you will always be confused by someone who sees honesty as optional and deception as a survival tactic. So stop trying to figure them out and start figuring out your next move. And here's first, set a rule for yourself. When someone lies to you about something small, assume they're capable of lying about something big, not because you're paranoid, but because self-respect demands that you don't reward dishonesty with continued access. And second, learn to recognize covert deception. Not all lies are spoken. Some are in the withheld information, the redirected questions, the sudden over-explaining, the timeline inconsistencies, the emotional guilt trips, the constant need for validation. When you ask simple questions, and if you're ever made to feel like the bad guy for seeking clarity, understand that's not love. That's manipulation. And third, build a mindset where peace is your baseline, where no matter how attractive someone is, how long the history is, or how much potential they have, you never compromise truth for comfort, because the cost of that comfort is always clarity. And a man who lives without clarity is always one step away from losing everything: his goals, his discipline, his emotional edge, and even his sanity. And if you've been there, you know how easy it is to fall into the trap of giving one more chance and then one more. And before you know it, you're tolerating things you once said you'd never accept. Not because you're weak, but because deception is slow, subtle, and calculated. And the longer you stay, the more it rewrites your boundaries, until you forget what real love, loyalty, and peace even feel like. So, if you're reading this and thinking about someone who's lied to you, repeatedly ask yourself, why do I keep allowing them access? What am I afraid to lose? And is that fear bigger than the damage they're doing to my spirit? And if the answer is no, then you know what you need to do. And when you finally walk away from a liar, understand that they'll try to rewrite the story, paint you as cold or unforgiving. They'll say you changed, but let them talk. Because those who lie can't survive in environments of truth. And the more honest you become about what you saw, what you felt, and what you won't allow anymore, the more you'll attract people who have nothing to hide and everything to build. And if you want to heal from deception, don't just cut them off. Cut off the version of you that tolerated it, the part of you that wanted to believe the story even when the facts didn't align, and in its place, build a man who doesn't need constant reassurance, who doesn't depend on words, who watches actions, who creates space between stimulus and response, who walks away when his peace is violated, not because he's angry, but because he knows his peace is too expensive to trade for cheap lies. And if you've ever wondered how to tell if someone is deceiving you, pay attention to what they do when they think you're not paying attention, because that's who they really are. And you owe it to yourself to believe what you see, not just what you're told. Because the man who sees but still stays becomes a partner in his own betrayal. And the world doesn't feel sorry for that man. It uses him, drains him, and replaces him. So don't be that man. Be the one who walks in truth even when it's uncomfortable, who trusts his gut even when it doesn't come with proof, and who chooses to build a life where honesty isn't requested, it's required. Number 3, emotional manipulation. There's a betrayal that doesn't show up as a lie or a physical action. It shows up in tone, in silence, in strategic tears and carefully timed guilt trips. And it doesn't hurt you in one big moment. It drains you over weeks, months, sometimes years, until you wake up one day and realize you've been loving someone who's been training you to doubt yourself while smiling at you from across the room. Because emotional manipulation isn't always loud, doesn't always come with shouting or obvious abuse. It often shows up in the soft, persuasive language of someone who claims they're doing it all for your own good, while slowly making you question your intentions, your reactions, and your instincts. And if you're a man who's ever been in a relationship where the other person flipped the script every time you tried to address a problem, where every issue you brought up suddenly became about your tone, your timing, your attitude, then you felt the crushing weight of manipulation, disguised as communication. And it's one of the most disorienting experiences a man can go through. Because when you're physically strong but emotionally confused, you start to feel like your strength has no outlet, like you're fighting a battle that can't be won, because the rules change every time you speak. And one of the cruelest parts of emotional manipulation is that it's done with surgical precision. The manipulator learns your insecurities, studies your responses, and begins to push buttons they know will trigger confusion and shame. not to destroy you, but to control you, to create a reality where they are always the victim and you are always on trial, where you're constantly apologizing just to keep the peace, walking on eggshells in your own life, just to avoid the next emotional trap. And if you've been there, you know what it's like to say sorry for things you didn't do, to justify boundaries that shouldn't need explaining, to stay silent just to avoid another hour-long conversation where nothing gets resolved and everything gets twisted. And this isn't love. It's warfare disguised as affection, a form of control so covert that you start to feel guilty for even thinking something might be wrong. And the worst part is how normalized it becomes, how slowly you begin to shrink, to accept their definitions of your motives, their versions of events, their reinterpretations of your past behavior. And if you don't stop it early, you'll eventually lose the ability to trust your own emotions, your own memories, your own moral compass. And if you're wondering what this looks like in real life, picture this. You're dating someone who constantly compares you to their ex, who makes you feel like you're never doing enough, who shuts down when you try to have real conversations and then says, "You're too intense," or "You're too sensitive." Someone who claims they're always the one trying, while somehow you're always the one apologizing. And they may never scream at you. They may never hit you. But the psychological damage runs just as deep, if not deeper, because it convinces you that your feelings are the problem, not the dynamic. And the way out of this hell starts with one brutal realization. If someone constantly makes you feel like you're the villain in your own life, you're not in love, you're in a psychological cage, and you have to decide that you will no longer allow anyone to weaponize your kindness against you. And the first step to breaking free is reclaiming your right to interpret your own reality, to believe what you saw, to feel what you feel without shame, to know that discomfort is not always your fault. And sometimes it's just the emotional smoke from someone else's manipulative fire. And if you're dealing with someone who can cry on command, who brings up their trauma the moment they're confronted, who accuses you of being ungrateful for all they've done whenever you express a boundary, then you are not in a relationship. You are in a performance. And you're the supporting actor in someone else's story where they always need to be the hero or the victim, never the villain. And what makes this betrayal even harder is that manipulative people often aren't evil in the cartoon sense. They're damaged, wounded, clever, and yes, sometimes even charming, but their charm is their mask. And the moment you stop playing your role, they panic, they lash out, they accuse, they plead, they promise to change. And that's when you must stay centered. Because the moment you start to pull away is when the manipulation intensifies, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of losing control over someone they've worked so hard to condition. And it's in this moment that most men fail, not because they're weak, but because they've been taught that strength means staying, fighting for love, sacrificing their peace for connection. But the truth is, strength is knowing when to walk away from a situation that is slowly killing your spirit. Strength is setting boundaries that don't require explanation. Strength is choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, solitude over manipulation. And if you want to develop this strength, you have to start with self-awareness. Write down how you feel. After every major interaction with that person, look for patterns, not isolated events. Notice how many times you've had to apologize for expressing yourself, how many times your feelings were dismissed or flipped back onto you. And then ask yourself this: would you want someone you care about to be treated this way? And if the answer is no, then why do you accept it for yourself? And the second step is emotional detachment. Not coldness, but clarity. The ability to feel love but still choose distance. The ability to care without allowing that care to override your sense of dignity. Because manipulators feed off your empathy, your guilt, your desire to be the good guy. And you have to starve that dynamic by removing the fuel, by responding with calm truth instead of emotional justification. And yes, they'll accuse you of being heartless, of changing, of not being who you used to be. But that's the point. You're not. You've grown. And anyone who needs you to stay small, confused, and emotionally vulnerable to control you does not love you. They love the version of you they can control. And if you want to heal from emotional manipulation, you have to go deeper than just cutting. Guys, you have to cut the internal wiring that made you susceptible to it, which means revisiting where you learned to associate love with walking on eggshells, where you started believing that being misunderstood was just part of the deal. And the third step is building an emotional fortress. Not walls that keep love out, but standards that keep manipulation from getting in. And you do that by surrounding yourself with people who hold space for your truth, who don't need you to shrink for them to feel strong, who challenge you without belittling you, who apologize when they're wrong without needing to be begged. And that starts with how you treat yourself. Do you give yourself permission to feel, to pause, to walk away, or do you bully yourself into staying in situations that hurt you because you think endurance is virtue? And the truth is, endurance is only a virtue when the pain serves a purpose. But enduring manipulation only serves the manipulator. And if you've ever left a conversation more confused than when it started, more ashamed than when you walked in, that's your signal not to try harder, not to explain more clearly, but to exit gracefully and protect the version of you that still believes in truth. Because no one has the right to twist your reality in the name of love. And the final piece of advice is this: when someone makes you feel bad for having needs, that is manipulation. When they change the subject every time accountability is mentioned, that is manipulation. When they only show affection after you break down, that is manipulation. And when they turn every disagreement into a referendum on your character, that is manipulation. And you don't fix that by loving them harder. You fix that by loving yourself enough to walk away and rebuild your life around people who don't need to confuse you to keep you close. And once you've done that, once you've broken the cycle, you'll never fall for it again, because you'll know what peace feels like. And once a man knows peace, he never chases chaos dressed as love again. If you've made it to this point, you're not just someone who watched a video. You're a man who's starting to wake up, to see clearly, to feel everything in his gut that he's ignored for too long. And I want you to sit with this truth. You weren't weak for trusting. You weren't stupid for staying. You weren't blind for believing. It means you had heart. It means you were loyal. It means you loved fully. And now it means you are wise enough to never let yourself be betrayed the same way again, and that evolution is the most powerful revenge. Not the kind that's loud or vengeful, but the kind that builds a life so solid, so peaceful, so grounded in truth, that manipulation, deception, and disloyalty can't even survive in your presence. And I know you've been through more than you talk about. I know you've stayed silent about betrayals that shattered you because you were told that. Real men don't talk about pain, but those lies stop here because healing starts when you stop protecting the people who broke you and start protecting the version of you that deserves better. And if you're ready to reclaim your peace, to protect your spirit and to rebuild your confidence, not from ego, but from clarity, I want you to comment right now. Never again. Just that. Never again. Say it. Type it. Claim it. Let it be the line in the sand, where your old self ends and your new life begins. Because if you're here, I know you're not like most. I know you're searching for something real. And that's what this space is about. That's why this channel exists. Not for entertainment, but for transformation. Not just for information, but for inner power. And if anything in this video spoke to you, if even one sentence shook something loose in your chest or made you feel seen in a way that no one else has ever done before, then don't just walk away with that feeling. Act on it. Protect this space by supporting it. Because when you like this video, when you drop a comment, when you share it with someone who needs to hear it, you're not just helping me. You're helping every man out there who's still stuck, still silent, still thinking he's alone. And you're proving that there is a community of men who are no longer interested in comfort lies, but committed to uncomfortable truths. Men who want to grow, evolve, lead, love with discernment, build with loyalty, and walk in power with clarity. And if that's you, then hit that subscribe button right now. Not because I said so, but because every time you do, you help make these insights accessible to the men who need them most, the ones who are still healing, still questioning, still becoming. And maybe today you were that man, but tomorrow you'll be the one who leads others out of that confusion into purpose. And that's what this mission is about. Real conversations, real transformation, and a world where strong men rise again, one truth at a time.